5, 4, 3, 2, 1, liftoff.
Not only are central banks buying gold at record levels, but they're also reducing their share of US dollar reserves.
The dollar would collapse, the stock market would collapse, the bond market would collapse, banking system would collapse, the insurance companies would collapse. This is the Great Reset.
Once one system dies, in order to get the public to trust the new system, gold becomes a component of that system. Until then, ultimately, they take it out again.
All the central banks are working on this. That's why we are investing a lot of resources in precisely developing the technology in such a way it is a system that works no matter what.
The greatest enemy of the dollar is not Russia or China. It's the United States Treasury and the Fed.
And the only way I know we're going to have a growth agenda is to rebuild our economies and infrastructure.
We know from experience that things look sustainable until suddenly they no longer do. That is how markets work.
Glint is the first company in the world to enable physical gold that you own to participate in electronic payments. Everyday money with the Glint app and MasterCard. You can buy as little as 1 cent's worth of gold or millions of dollars. You can, of course, save it. You can send it from one account to another, and you can spend it anywhere in the world. I pay for my Ubers on the way here, my flights when I'm going around the United States, and those flights last month were a lot cheaper for me than they were everybody else because gold's doing so well.
Alrighty, everyone, welcome to another live stream here. Today we've got Jason Cozens, CEO and founder of Glint. I'm going to put you up on center stage, Jason.
Wow.
Looking good, sir. Glint is the platform, the first platform in the world to provide its clients with the ability to easily and affordably buy, save, send, and spend real gold with the Glint MasterCard. Jason is passionate for economic fairness. He is a pioneer in fintech innovation, and Jason drives Glint's mission to redefine money and has been a specialist in precious metals since the previous financial crisis in 2008. So Jason has been through the ups and downs of the market. And right now, he's looking like he's been right for quite some time, recognizing the price of gold is trending up and to the right. Now, with that being said, Jason, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Ray. Thank you. Thank you for letting me come on your show. Great to see your smile. Look at those mashers.
Mashers. Thankfully, I brushed these mashers before coming on here. What's going on? You know, the gold market's looking pretty hot right now. It's up and to the right. You know, you mentioned in this video here the last time when you flew out to XRP Las Vegas that the prices for tickets were affordable being in your position.
Yeah, that's right. Well, unfortunately, when the gold price is going up, it's a barometer to say that things are not doing too well. I mean, you know, you mentioned that I had the idea for Glint in 2008, the last financial crisis, and
yeah.
I thought things were pretty bad then. You know, I thought, you know, inflation's kind of, you know, the target rates of the central banks at about 2%, which incidentally, they don't seem to be able to have any kind of rationale for. I think I saw Powell being quizzed by one of your senators, I think, a few months ago, and when asked, well, what does this inflation do? What does it do for my constituents, and why is it 2%? The guy struggled. He didn't have anything to say, and ended up saying, well, you know, it's because that's kind of what everyone else does. I mean, what a ridiculous comment. You know, I think obviously, well, that, you know, for me, I'd seen gold, I'd seen the fiat currencies, the dollar and the pound, lose 85% of their purchasing power in my lifetime by 2008. I mean, what's all that about? Why are we using a currency that becomes worthless over time, forces people to get involved in speculative projects? And I didn't understand. I didn't understand why. I said, I've got to understand this. What is going on? And discovered that, of course, gold backed the dollar until 1971, and by de facto, because it was the world, it was the kind of the reserve currency of the world. Then you know, it backed everything. And then I realized as well that it wasn't just inflation that was causing problems. Back in 2008, we had a lot of bank failures. So, you know, watching those banks go bust, and a lot of people losing money. You know, these federal agencies and stuff didn't step into all banks around the world to save everybody. A lot of people are losing money. So of the realization that a bank is not a risk-free deposit of funds. When you put your money in the bank, it is not there. You know, They're able to create money out of thin air. There's only maybe 10% of all deposits in the bank at any one time. So it's a fundamentally at-risk kind of scenario. So inflation and risk. And of course, I thought that was bad enough. Now, of course, we've seen inflation reared its head up to 9% recently, and for lots of good reasons, which I'm sure we'll be talking about today. I don't think that inflation is over by any means at all. The problems are multiplying. I'm having to call it a poly crisis. It's not just one thing. Yes, inflation is a big problem. Yes, systemic risk within the banking system, within the financial system, is a big problem. Yeah, I mean, look at the U.S. government debt. I mean, 34.9 trillion. I think when I was at Las Vegas, it was 34 trillion. Now it's nearly 35 trillion. I think it's going up a trillion every 4 months or something. And of course,
I heard almost every 100 days from Andy Sheckman on that Kiteco recent interview.
And let's try and put that into perspective. You've got a lot of people living in the United States of America. Guess how much that is per citizen? That's $100,000 of debt per person.
Wow.
And if you look at just the tax-paying citizens, that's $266,000 of debt that everybody is already in. I mean, wow.
I'm going to bring up onto the screen here on your website, glintpay.com. You guys have some figures in regards to the global debt. Global debt has totaled $307 trillion. I mean, is this a tipping point, do you think, for not just the US, but I mean the world?
Well, I think you picked up on something really interesting there. Is this a tipping point? Because of course we've all got recency bias. Mm-hmm. And we have conversations around the lines of, well, we can print money, so we can just print our way out of this, no problem. Or we're in the United States of America, we can get in as much debt as we want. And look at Japan. Japan's lived with debt for a long time. What's the problem? Things have changed. Something has changed. I mean, you can see that in the gold price going up, but more importantly, the fact that interest rates are high and the gold price is still going up. Normally what happens is when interests are high, people move out of gold and put their money in the bank because they get an interest rate. That's not happening. Like something systemic, something fundamental has changed. I mean, you can never really understand what gold's doing, but something has changed. And, one of my advisors explains it like this. When the US came off the gold standard in 1971, temporarily, of course, we've heard that many, many times. Why did everybody carry on using the US dollar? Well, because of course, some of you would have heard the story. They flew to the Middle East and they said to the oil producers, look, you guys carry on insisting on US dollars for gold, then we'll support you, we'll defend you. Okay, so then we went from a gold standard into a petrodollar standard. And that's been great for America. I mean, we've been able to print as much, the US government has been able to print as much money as it wanted, and that's benefited the US. And that's been pumped into the economy. And inflation's also at the same time been exported. So microwaves now made in China, it's not made in Texas, and so, how much would the cost of a microwave be if it had to be made in Texas? Instead, it's been sent overseas, where at the time, these developing countries were doing this work for nothing. Mm-hmm. So, you've got a situation where the country's exporting inflation. You've also got a situation where it doesn't really matter because we can carry. So the inflation's exported and we can raise as much debt as we want. And we can pay for unsustainable promises to the electorate. And both parties have done this. There isn't one government, one party that's been in power that hasn't printed money. Everyone's been building up debt. And that, of course, has gone to. It has made America great. It's been able to build its defense system up to be the biggest in the world, and other things, and great, amazing projects. But the problems are with that, and the things that I felt in 2008 is that those closest to the money supply benefit disproportionately from those further away. What do I mean by that? Well, governments ultimately benefit more than others because they're able to give unsustainable promises to the electorate. So whoever gets in power says, I promise you X, Y, and Z, and they're able to turn around and borrow the money and get it and do it. And people all over the world will lend them that money. They'll buy their US treasuries because they're in a dollar world, and they need that. And they need it to pay for the oil.
Well, not to switch gears here, Jason, I do want to talk about some of the things that were said when you were at XRP Las Vegas, because when you're up on stage, man, you sure did get a round of applause from those in the audience here. And, I just want to take a moment because we had a great interview when we were at XRP Las Vegas, and I just got to apologize for the technical difficulties with the new microphone set up with the phone. But hopefully today we knock it out of the park for you here. I'm actually confident we will. But anyways, when you were up on stage, you mentioned about the potential opportunity for various states in the United States to adopt or to use silver and gold as currency. And I wanted to double down on that and hear more from you, because ultimately you mentioned that it was up to the state the state is the one that has the power and that could basically put up a fight against the Fed. Or what are your thoughts? Do you mind expanding upon that? And then when you're chatting, I will bring up that Article 10, Section 1, Clause 1.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. You don't have the United Provinces of America. You have the United States of America, and you have this ability for the states to keep the feds in check and vice versa. And so I think what's been happening over the last few decades is that, the power of the federal government's been getting bigger. And now the states are suddenly starting to wake up and saying, hang on, we're not quite happy about what you're doing here. And they're worried about the problems, and they're worried about the changes. Just to finish that change I was talking about, what's happened now is the US government can no longer keep on raising as much debt. People don't want as many dollars anymore. The US dollar is not the only reserve currency of the world. People are buying oil with Russian currency, Chinese currency, Indian currency. Foreign reserves around the world have been dropping. They've gone from like 76% to 35% in many cases. And so people aren't buying the dollar, not using it. And treasury bond auctions are starting to fail. The government has started to reduce the amount of 30-year bonds that it's auctioning because it just can't get them away. And then now suddenly 5-year treasury bonds are coming under pressure, I'm told. And so you're in a situation where they can't keep on borrowing the money. So what's going to happen? At some point, the auctions will fail. At some point, the US government can't raise any more money. They can't cut costs. I mean, because what's all this debt being paid for? Well, $1.8 trillion on Medicare, $1.5 trillion on Social Security, nearly $1 trillion on defense. And guess what? The same amount as defense on paying the interest on all of this debt. So they can't stop it. So what do they do when they can't borrow anymore? The Fed will come in and the Fed will buy that. They will print money. It's a fancy word for it called quantitative easing. It's really money printing, and they start buying like there's no tomorrow. And of course, inflation is going to rip, throughout the economy. And they're quite happy for inflation to rip because effectively it will reduce what that debt really means over time, but it's going to have a huge impact on society. I've heard all kinds of numbers like consistent 15% inflation. Of course, when you're in that kind of world, you only need one policy mistake and it can flip into hyperinflation. And so US states have been seeing, the federal government build up all this kind of unsustainable debt and credit. And they're saying, hang on, we're running a lot of them are running their fiscal budgets very, very well. They're not in all this kind of debt. And they're saying, we've got to do something about that. What can we do? What can we do as states? And maybe bring up that thing again you had on your screen about your amazing Constitution, the Constitution of America. Article 1 right there, Section 10, Clause 1 says that, of course, it doubles down and says no state may make a currency. We don't want all these different states coming up with the Texas dollar or the Californian good dollar. We don't want that. That would be terrible for business. But guess what? They can't make anything in currency but gold and silver. They can use gold and silver. They can authorize gold and silver currency. And a lot of these states are starting to cotton onto this. I only found out about it last August. Someone in the Texas Senate mentioned that when we pass all this legislation, we're going to need a system like London's Glint Pay. We're already live in the US, I tell them. And so they were over the moon about that. And then I suddenly found out it's not one state. I found out there were 3 states. And by, I think, the end of Q1, there were 20 US states. All the legislators, the treasurers of these states, all working on trying to understand, developing, drafting, even submitting, and in some cases passing legislation to do with enabling gold as legal tender. And I see Q1 and Q2 of next year, the legislative session is going to be phenomenal. I mean, Texas is already ahead of all of this. They already got the permission to build their own gold depository. The states are they're in serious business here. They want to protect the rights of their citizens. They want to protect them, give them something reliable. Just give them a choice. We're not talking about any kind of anything anti-US dollar. We're to give them a choice, get with the US dollar, and really create some kind of barometer that forces federal government and the Fed, forces them, keeps them in check.
Man, Jason, what do you think is? I mean, to your point, you're seeing a trend of states moving towards a asset-backed currency system. You're seeing countries within the BRICS potentially adopting asset-backed currencies as well, moving to gold. Do you think that, I mean, as Lynette Zhang had mentioned in that clip where I played at the intro, as far as how they use gold to basically give that stamp of, not a stamp of approval, but basically to legitimize maybe a new system and then remove it once it's been adopted completely. Do you think that this is just some cyclical and something that is just part of the norm, or trends that we should be mindful of? And then following that, what is this doing for Glint? How is Glint positioned? Are you guys, where are you on this wave?
Yeah, sure. Well, of course, everything's cyclical. You look through history, and you see the cycles. I think history is probably one of the most underrated subjects. When I was at school, I liked it whilst I could draw pictures, but after that I started to lose interest. But actually, as I got older, I realized it's probably one of the most important subjects for me to have studied. All fiat currencies come to an end. They have a life of about 100 years, and they all come to an end. They're backed by the military. They start to debase their currencies. The Romans started to drill holes into the aureus. We've seen it time and time again. It's at the heart of Europe. In Germany, of course, it probably ended up leading to and contributing to World War II. Awful things as well come from it when people debase their currency. When there is nothing to keep people honest. And there's a reason why gold is called honest money. It's created when two neutron stars collide. Its nature is not defined by a human being, and so it can't be corrupted. That's what I love about it. That's why throughout time, throughout space, gold has always been money, no matter where you are on the planet and at whatever time. So look, I think it's fascinating. We're even talking to. We even had approaches a few weeks ago from a small central bank as well, like a country. So it's fascinating to see. I could never ever have expected this kind of momentum to be happening, not just from people, because that was the first response. People love Glint. We have 4.8 stars on Trustpilot. They love it when they hear about it, because it's still the best kept secret, unfortunately. But when they hear about it, they sign up. Now we've got state governments, and we've got even some governments around the world interested in what Glint can do. Now, one of the questions that comes up time and time again is, well, if Glint is already up and running in the US, then what's the point in all this legislation? Well, there's two really important points about why this legislation needs to happen. Number one, it needs to protect the rights of citizens to be able to use gold and silver as money. What you don't want is the federal government coming up and playing silly buggers at some point and trying to bring in laws or legislation or taxes that make it difficult to use gold and silver as money. So the states backing this, I think, is a really great thing. And the second thing, of course, is that by authorizing gold as legal tender, then the gold and the silver on this platform, hopefully it will be Glint with the only live transaction gold platform in America. We're the only one here. We're the only one with experience on this. But it's not just about technology. It's about running a platform like that as well. But hopefully we'll be the one. But when that happens, when a state authorizes a gold currency, then it is immoral to tax a currency. So of course people tax assets, things like stock market and things like that. They'll tax your gains if you have them. But to tax money, that would be That would be insane. That would be totally immoral. And of course, the IRS currently classify gold, silver bars, and coins, even the ones that are legal tender. The golds, eagles, and stuff. They classify them as collectibles. We can't really spend that. You can't spend that gold and silver.
No, you mentioned. I think you mentioned. Sorry to cut you off, Jason, but when you were on stage, you mentioned, I believe, if we were to adopt gold and silver as currency, it would affect positively, at least for us, in regards to the taxes accrued. Do you mind speaking on that?
Yeah, they would. They would. The IRS would, in most people's experts' legal opinion, would have to fall away the capital gains tax that is currently exercised onto gold bars and coins. Because it's currently classified as collectibles. They couldn't classify transactional gold as collectibles. The only way they can do that is because, well, what are you going to do? You're going to pop into Starbucks with your gold coin and use that to buy a mochaccino latte or whatever they call it with extra caramel on the top? No.
Now we know what you're drinking.
You can't do that. But with a system like Glint, of course you can. And if it's state authorized, it's an official authorized currency of the United States of America. So it's got to be the capital gains tax has got to fall away. So two really important reasons. And if you think about as well, the $165 billion of gold that's traded every single day in the world, a lot of that is on the COMEX, it's on the ETFs, these synthetic instruments that are supposed to be backed by gold, etc. Well, if suddenly capital gains tax is not being charged on this venue over here, which is the US state one, you can imagine how much gold trading flow is going to move out of those systems into this type of gold currency platform.
On the topic of the volume of trading for gold, I want to segue into a recent clip involving, was it Idris?
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, thank you. He was getting a tour through the ECB, the European Central Bank's, one of their 9 gold vaults, which is, it blows my mind because the one that they showed was enormous. And they mentioned that, I believe in just one vault, there was over 400,000 gold bars totaling multiple billions of dollars. And I want to play a quick clip because ultimately I believe you also vault your bullion gold in a similar environment. And I'd like to talk about, how lead the conversation into how Glint aims to redefine money through this type of structure that you're having in essentially digitizing the amount of gold that you have vaulted on behalf of your clientele. I'm going to play the clip and I'm going to let you explain what you guys are doing in regards to digitizing gold.
About 30% of the world's gold is held in professional vaults just like this. How much gold is here?
This is one of 9 gold vaults that we have here at the bank. There's about 400,000 gold bars stored here, and collectively they're worth about £250 billion, something like that.
How did it turn into, okay, the bank needs to hold this much gold? What was the process? Take me back.
What people started to do was they would take their gold coins to a goldsmith, and the goldsmith would issue them with an IOU. And over time, people realised that actually using those IOUs to pay for goods and services was actually easier than actually going and getting the gold and lugging it around. And those IOUs eventually developed into what we now know as banknotes.
But these days, the Bank of England plays an even bigger role, holding gold for the world.
So the purpose of that play in that clip was to essentially paint a picture of how much gold just one central bank has in their custody, and to the overall mission of how they're trying to hoard all this gold for the sake of what? I'd love for you to explain, Jason. Why are these central banks flighting to gold, and what do you think that's going to do for Glint, who aims to redefine money through this gold digitization?
Well, I mean, gold is the only form of money in the world. Everything else is debt. The dollar is debt. It's an IOU. It's not backed by anything. And so it is the only type of money. And of course, it's the currency of last resort. And we're into end of day times. I mean, my mother-in-law, your parents sometimes don't quite understand what you're doing. My mother-in-law said to me the other day, one of the videos, I think it was Jim Rickard's video that you played, clip of earlier on at the beginning. She sent me a text sending the video saying, I'm sure you've seen this, but what was her word that she used? I think it was basically saying that, scaremongering, question mark. I was like, no, this is a real problem now. It comes down to trust at the end of the day. What is money for? Money is for, really, I see it as the ledger of promises between men and women, between countries, between businesses. And of course, what are these central banks going to trust when it comes to what they owe each other? And they're buying record amounts of gold, record amounts. And previously, for the previous chapter, it was the US dollar. It's increasingly not the US dollar. They're starting to look at other currencies. And of course, gold plays the ultimate role.
I'm getting a couple questions in the chat here, Jason, and I'm going to go back a few because ultimately this is coming from a gentleman named, let me see here. I'm going to pull it up on screen right now. Crypto Navigator. Thanks for joining, Crypto. Question: how will Glint be affected if we get an ICE 9 event like the 1920s? Will insurance ties affect liquidity in Glint?
I don't know. That sounds like a really complicated technical question, which is not my bag. I think lots of things have happened in the past that won't necessarily happen again. I just boil things down to the basics. Back in the 1930s, of course, they confiscated gold, but it was a very difficult situation, different situation. Gold was tied to the dollar. There was no difference in the price. The gold price and the dollar price didn't change. And so when the US government said, it's your patriotic duty to hand us your gold, we need it, and we'll give you back the dollars that's the same value as the gold. I think it was a very different world, different perspective. Of course, they untethered gold from the dollar, and the gold price shot up, and the governments, of course, benefited from that. Against, it wasn't in the benefit of customers. But can you imagine if the US government tried to confiscate the gold of US citizens? Did you know? I didn't know this. It's actually higher than I thought. A Gallup poll this year said that 18% of Americans think that gold is the most important investment. So you can imagine how many Americans hold gold. I don't think they're going to be giving up their gold that easily.
No,
but those vaults, at the end of the day, she was right in one respect on that video, saying that there was no point holding your gold. There's two different ways of having custody of gold. You can hold it and have it in your hand, and I encourage everybody to have some gold in their hand. If you don't own it, you hold it, you don't own it. I can understand what people mean about that. You should have some physical. Andy Sheckman's a great guy. We're going to be working with Andy a bit more, and of course that's his business very much. But at the same time, you can also, there's dangers with that security wise and things like that. And of course, Glint allows you to put it in a vault like the one you saw, and also be able to spend it, and so have some utility with it as well, and use it as real hard money.
Yeah, I've been able to, like you, I saw your video, which I played earlier at the beginning of this live stream, was purchased a cup of coffee with my Glint MasterCard. And but before we switch gears here, I do wanted to talk about, let's see here. You mentioned that you're potentially partnering with Andy Sheckman. I'd love to hear more about that relationship, and then other potential partnerships that Glint has that is pursuing as well.
Yeah, well, Andy's a great guy. If you've watched any of his videos and stuff, he's really bright, very intelligent. Been long involved in the gold business a very, very long time. A lot of people trust him in that business, Miles Franklin, and of course, he's a great specialist in physical gold bars and coins, which, as I just said, I think are really important that you have some physical gold bars. In fact, at Glint, it's a legal requirement. If people want to have their gold bars delivered, then of course we can have it delivered to them. It's real physical gold after all. And so I think Andy and I, we might be developing, I think we're going to be developing some content together, just trying to build awareness and raise awareness about gold, the importance of gold, and everyone's strategy for dealing with the challenges that we're currently experiencing that are coming ahead. And the different ways of owning it and using it. So yeah, shout out to Andy.
Yeah, and to your point, because he's been all over the web as of late, you can just, if we, like I mentioned before hopping on the call, you could just see that guy's mind running 1,000 miles a minute with all the data points that he's talking about.
He could probably answer the question that was just answered earlier on.
Yeah. Phone to Andy Sheckman. But anyways, what about other potential partnerships that you've got working, Jason?
Well, I think one of the things we've been planning, unfortunately, we've had to kind of put on ice, is a crypto bridge. We've decided not to enact that because of the regulatory lack of clarity around the regulations and the compliance aspects of the cryptocurrency industry. I mean, I think that regulators on purpose write ambiguity into all their legislation so they can interpret it how they wish. And unfortunately, that's been weaponized, of course, as we've seen, against the crypto industry, against Ripple, etc. But I'm really glad to see the whole industry fighting back. And Glint believes very strongly that gold is the most reliable form of money. But of course, we recognize the opportunities that cryptocurrencies bring society and bring the world. And I think there couldn't be anything better than to be able to move your gains, for instance, into gold and go backwards and forwards. But that bridge is currently, the drawbridge is raised currently until we see what happens over the next regulatory sessions, over the next election, what's going to happen after that. Of course, if a new team come in, does that mean that attitudes that's going to change? It's all a bit up in the air. What we don't want to do is put our customers and their gold at risk in any way. So just bear with us. We're kind of aligned with each other on this, so we'll do the best we can with that. And then, of course, apart from the US states, the exciting thing there, we actually, as I said, have got even a central bank that we're talking to about how we can help them help their citizens in terms of protecting them from the destructive effects of inflation. But let's see how that goes. It's early days.
Would this be one of your first partnerships with a central bank, Jason?
Yeah, it would be. It's very early, so I'm just being transparent with you. It's very early, and we'll see how it goes. And I got to get the
we love that transparency.
But yeah, I'll not be that transparent. I'll tell you who it is. But yeah, I mean, even on the doorstep. I mean, I've been touring the States. It's been amazing, going from Tallahassee in Florida to Nashville and going to Dallas and Texas and speaking at House and Senate, committee meetings in Kansas, and it's been amazing. I mean, and what's amazing is just meeting the people, meeting these legislators, meeting the grassroots movement. And I think this is what's so exciting, is that actually you have a framework there in the Constitution that you can use. You can vote it in. There are people throughout all stratas of the infrastructure saying, we want to do this. There are governors who know about this initiative. They're not stupid. They're treasurers. There's amazing treasurers who are really driving this forward. Amazing men. They're like people out of a Ayn Rand book. I'm sure that there are women too. It's an amazing. And I've met the grassroots. Gosh, I mean, amazing. Don't get on the wrong side of some of these grassroots organizations. They're amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the legislators said, I'm not naming any names, but apparently someone had kind of tried to cross this legislation, and suddenly he had telephone calls going from this women's group, and they were completely hounding the telephone lines. And this guy rang up this legislator saying, "Make it stop! Make it stop!" He's like, "Stop what? What are you talking about?" Well, let the legislation pass then. This is the people speaking, and supported by what is enshrined in the Constitution. You couldn't get better than
that. Jason, do you mind backing up about 10 seconds? It kind of broke up. Do you mind repeating what you just said? About
well, the whole story.
10 No, just 10 seconds ago.
No, basically, what else do you want? You've got an amazing framework in the United States of America that gives you everything you need. You just have to vote for it. You have legislators and governors and treasurers all throughout the system wanting to do this. You just need to find out who your local legislator is that's working on this legislation, and say, "You've got my vote. What can I do to help you? How can I pass this message on? We want this. The people want this. I wish I didn't have to do Glint. I really don't. I'd much rather be, lying on a beach doing something else, but I felt like I have a vocation, that this is some calling I have to do. Unfortunately, when I see a problem and I see a solution, I've got to work on it. I wish I didn't have to do it. There are legislators, there are treasurers, there are governors out there who want the same thing. It's bipartisan support as well. I've seen, Republicans. I've seen Republican legislators having their bills co-sponsored by Democrats, because this is something that affects everyone.
Have you, understanding the fact that you've been in this industry since 2008, almost 20, we're approaching 20 years here soon for you. So kudos to you. Have you seen any similar, do you see any similarities from the previous financial crisis to what's going on now?
Yeah, it's much worse. We did not have $34 trillion worth of debt at that point. The US hadn't weaponized its currency one last time. We didn't have dollar currency reserves at all-time lows. We didn't have, QE was kind of went on steroids after 2008. And then, legislators and central banks suddenly said, hey, we like this. Let's use it again. Look what's happened with the money printing. I mean, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it for my children. I have 4 children, beautiful boys and 1 beautiful girl. And, I don't want this for them. And so, we call Glint because it's like a glint of hope. It's about a light at the end of a dark tunnel. That's why we spend a lot of time trying to work out. That's why we call it that. Hopefully we're trying to contribute. In some small way, we can contribute and help you. So please, we're trying to do that for you. Also, if anybody knows about Glint, you must tell people about it. This is important that we spread the word about it, because it has been a long journey. Probably a bit ahead of our time, in trying to get this, but it's definitely the right place, the right time right now. People need to get on, effectively put themselves on their own personal gold standard. The central banks are doing it. I mean, it's crazy to hear some arguments. It's crazy sometimes to hear treasurers having to defend their ability for the state to be able to buy gold. Well, hang on, you're the only state entity that's not buying gold right now. If you're not buying gold, everybody else is. All the countries are. All the people are. So yeah.
Do you mind? I mean, it's incredible to see how fast that. I mean, our money is getting inflated into essentially nothing. And I know that I love. For the record, I am a Glint customer. You know that, Jason. I've made multiple videos of purchasing coffee and other things. Do you think that you could take advantage of this opportunity to show the audience how your application works?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, just bear with me. We spend a lot of time. We're up to version 3 now, building our platform out. The app, of course, is just the front end of that.
I think you were also. I don't know how it is. Well, for us in the U.S., it's just U.S. and gold currencies that are available to us. Is there anywhere in other jurisdictions where there's more currencies available for trading purposes and things like that as well?
Yeah. Okay. So let me just show the app. Here we have a little widget on my screen, a Glint widget, which shows me what's going on with gold. And I've got click on the button here. You can download the app, of course, from your favorite app store, and install it on your phone. It only takes a few minutes to be able to register. And when you come into it, in the US, you'll see a gold wallet and a US dollar wallet. In other countries, you can see gold, pounds, euros, and dollars. We intend to have, I think, 17 different currencies eventually. We are working on something interesting in the wallet space, which is not crypto, but something else. And you'll hear more about that sometime over the next 3 months, certainly in this quarter. So that's exciting. I kind of just want to tease you all about that. So you can deposit money into these wallets. So you can, for instance, deposit money into your US dollar account, just do an ACH transfer, a wire transfer, or use your debit card to put some money in there. And you can use that then to buy gold. Or, of course, you could just buy gold directly. So let's just do that. If I go into the buy gold section and say, look, okay, I'm going to use the dollars that I have in my account. I've got far too many dollars in there. I've been spending my gold too much. So let's buy, 200. Let's buy 200. Well, first of all, let me show you how democratizing we've made it. You can buy as little as 1 cent's worth of gold. So I'm trying to always make sure that everyone can buy gold. But
I want you to buy the gold, and then for the audience, I want you to show them how to send it, and I'll give you my address, Jason.
Okay, I'm sure you do. So let me send this. So I'm going to buy some gold there. Boom! I just bought $200 worth of gold. At today's prices, that's 2.6315 grams of gold.
Wow.
And I bought it at real-time price. That's constantly being streamed into us, the market price from our liquidity providers. That's 2 grams of gold of a real gold bar that sat in one of those vaults that you saw Idris Elba looking at before. We use a company called Brinks. They're one of the biggest custodian of precious metals in the world. Currently, the vault we're using is a Brinks vault in Switzerland, but we're working with Brinks. In fact, I was in the Utah vault just the other day, looking around the Brinks vault there. Amazing inside there, a bit similar to, not quite as much gold as you saw in that video, but a huge amount of gold and silver and even Pokemon cards. Can you believe it? Pokemon cards. I mean, that was amazing.
Pokemon cards.
Yeah, and sneakers, like in their wrapper, collectible sneakers, Pokemon cards, and of course a lot of gold and a huge amount of silver. There's much, silver takes up a lot more room.
Are you telling me that there's an app out there that's digitizing Pokemon cards or sneakers? Or why would those be in a vault?
Well, NFT. So that basically the Pokemon sits, the Pokemon card or the sneaker sits in the vault, and then the NFT represents it. It's floating around, digitized across the internet, and can be traded. But no, back to the app. So yeah, of course we issue a card. There's a map. That's where my gold is stored, with that green dot is in Switzerland. Soon to be in places like Utah, and Brinks have vaults in Utah, Florida, California, New York. There's the vault in Texas that they built.
So that's why you're making your trips across the pond to Utah. Is not only you have your team here, but also vaulting as well.
Yeah, well, the vaulting's not live yet, but we're looking forward to introducing that soon. And of course, nearly 80% of our customers are in the US. So we issue these cards, and of course, you can link your card to any of your wallets. And of course, mine's linked to my gold account. So anytime I use my card, then it sells some of my gold, and the proceeds of that sale go into dollars and get sent to the merchant in the currency of the merchant. So what did I do? I paid for an Uber just on the way to work this morning. It cost me 0.3798 grams of gold. I was in a club the other day, and I paid 0.0668 grams of gold for some water. Anywhere in the world where gold is accepted. Salt Lake City here. What's this? I must have been buying some water in Salt Lake City as well. And I'm sure I bought some gelato somewhere as well. Here we go. Gelato in Salt Lake City for 3, I think it was, costs 0.2569 grams of gold. So,
and understanding that gold is essentially up about 40% since, I believe, October. Everything that you're purchasing should essentially be at a discount to you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our customers are feeling that. They're feeling that they're getting some free money. It's not really, but that's what it feels like, because your dollars in your account are going down. Of course, it isn't without risk. That's why we call it a choice, because of course confidence in the US dollar is going up and down, and generally down over time, which means that the price of gold is going up and down, and generally up over time. But there are times when the gold price goes down, as you can see from the chart I was showing you. But let me just quickly show you the send functionality. It's not live in the US. We switched it off because we've just got to tread carefully with the SEC and with the different regulators and make sure we don't upset anybody and stuff. But this is what we'll be bringing soon, which is the send function. It's available everywhere else in the world. And so we can't. I'd love to be able to send you gold, Ray. I would, but
I know you would.
I can't.
But so Andrew will appreciate it. That's for sure.
Andrew, some of you might have met Andrew. He's a great guy and stuff. I say, all Oh, he's just come back from holiday. I hope you had a great holiday. And I can review that, and I can just press that button. Boom, it's gone. So I've sent my gold ownership. Oh, it wants me to check it as me. Done. I've sent that gold from me to him. Could have been cross-border, could have been halfway around the world, could have been to you from London, where I am today, to where you are. It's instantly as sending a text. You can now send gold from one person to another. Of course, the real gold sits in the vault and doesn't move, but you can send that ownership from you to somebody else as easily as sending a text. And I think that's where, with the legislation, with the US states, what we'll be doing is enabling other features, such as easy ability for merchants to use that same type of system, maybe with QR codes. So you go to pay for your coffee. So you want to pay with cash? Do you want to pay with debit or credit card, or do you want to pay with gold using the whatever Florida gold currency?
Would you even need a QR code? Because ultimately, if you have the Glint MasterCard and then you hooked it up to Apple Pay, you can just, do the whole tap and you're out the door.
Look, that's the card. You can use that any time you want already, anywhere in the world.
There we go.
Anywhere in the world where MasterCard's accepted.
Where's the gold one?
The gold one. You're not supposed to mention the solid gold one. That's one of our invite only cards. Yeah. For our ballers SVIPs. Made of 52 grams of real solid gold. Pretty amazing.
Wow.
So the peer-to-peer, great. I can use the card, of course, but what if the merchant wants to receive gold increasingly? I think, as one of my advisors said, up until things really start to get worse, the dollar will be, on a day-to-day basis, maybe the more stable currency out of the two. Gold, of course, over the long term being the stable one. But of course, what happens is that as things start to unravel, then of course it's a good idea to have the gold choice, and that becomes very much the one that's very stable with zero volatility. Of course, cryptocurrency is on its own journey, and it is relatively very high volatility at the moment, and of course I can see why the benefits that it brings to people in terms of trying to build their wealth up in the face of huge tsunami of erosion of their purchasing power. But it is I call a risk on assets at the moment, and its cycle and its history. As we look back on it, you'll see this period is risk on. When Russia invaded Ukraine, of course, crypto and stock markets and all risk on assets dropped, gold went up. And I'm sure there's a good chance over in time that situation will change. But right now, gold is the only risk-off asset. It's the only thing that's no one else's liability. It's trusted globally by everybody. There isn't anyone in the world who wouldn't want to accept some gold from me if I offered it to them. They'd love it, and they'd love to be able to take it in payment. But more often than not, they don't realize how you can, until, of course, I tell them, or one of our clients tells them, hey, do you know, have you heard of Glint? You can actually use gold as money. People don't believe you at first, but they're pretty amazed when you show them.
Yeah. It's from watching your commercials that you guys are making. It's always entertaining and exciting to see you inform the barista about your technology or things of that nature. And it's also inspiring, because it's you doing putting in the work. And I love to see, the person at the helm, getting into the trenches and really fighting for what they believe in. And I appreciate that, Jason. So kudos to you here. Is there anything, we've got about 10 minutes left of our call here. Is there anything that we haven't discussed yet that you would like to take advantage of and inform the audience? Obviously, Glint is doing well. You're trending up and to the right. I believe, from what I looked at on Link2's, my former employer's platform, because they have some data points on you're an investment opportunity, a Link2 portfolio company, and on their site it shows you have about 190,000 users, 40,000 active clients. Can we get into some of the numbers of how big Glint is, or what you guys are aiming for?
Yeah, we've done over $500 million worth of transactions on our platform at any one time. We have about $170 million of gold on the platform at any one time. We have over a couple of 100,000 registered users on a monthly active basis. There's about 50,000 of those monthly active clients. We have the new functionality we launched recently, which was the gold accumulation planning. So you can just set the account up so it just buys a little bit of gold for you every month. You've got a big thing was the partnership we did with KPMG. So KPMG, one of the biggest audit firms, accounting firms in the world, and one of what we call the Big Four. We partnered with them to deliver a functionality for a capital gains or loss report. We looked into it and it was really complicated. And so we decided to go to the best in the world, partner with them. So we have a system now where you can send your anonymous transactional data to them. They crunch that information and send you back a report that's unique to you, that works out what your capital gains tax liability is, if you're fortunate to have one. Because I always say, if you're fortunate enough to have a capital gain, which you are more often than not, then at the moment, until these US states pass that legislation, you have to pay a bit of tax. But this makes it seamless for you. You can order it in the app and get that information quite quickly. But yeah, the team's we have a wonderful team in the US. Some of you, I'm sure, clients of Glint would have spoken to them. They do their very best. They're really heart and soul into delivering this vision and this mission to the world. And so they love what they do, and I think that shows. Big shout out to my team. Very proud of you. We had a big group meeting, global get together, some in person, some by remotely, and it was so good to see everybody together, people from different parts of the world, but a lot in the UK and in the US. We used to have an office in Boulder, Colorado, actually, but since COVID, we've worked in a more distributed fashion, which makes us a little bit more robust as well against any problems that might be coming down the line.
That would have been great. Are you a skier or a snowboarder, Jason?
Well, I used to be a runner and a mountain climber.
Okay.
But, I'd like to get back to that. So mountains, the landscape in America, of course, is incredible, isn't it?
It would have been great in Boulder, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Same in Utah, up there, Sundance Ranch and stuff around there. It's pretty amazing. But look, I think you've mentioned about us being in the trenches and stuff and fighting the fight, and it's been a long journey and it can feel very lonely. And I think what's been amazing actually is starting to engage with the community a bit better and suddenly realizing that there's a whole army of people out there who are willing us on. And I just want to say a big thank you to the community that's out there. I really do appreciate it. It's wonderful, like at the XRP Las Vegas, people coming up and saying, look, you guys are doing a fantastic job. We love it. Keep on going. And that's the kind of thing that really keeps us going. So please, when our team see positive reviews on Trustpilot stuff, it does make their hearts glow, and it makes them realize it's all worth it. So please carry on doing that. And of course, tell people about it. I think that when people hear about it, they're amazed. I mean, all kinds of people, no matter who I'm talking to, they're amazed about it. So it's something, you should be doing your friends a favor, I think, and telling them about it. That will make our job in getting this mission of bringing a solid gold currency to the world, your own private, effectively gold central bank, your own gold standard. It makes that job a lot easier if the army, unites. I mean, the XRP army, what they've done for Ripple is incredible. And we've seen that, and I've started to see that with Glint too. But thank you very much, and please continue to support us with that kind of activity and love. I really appreciate it.
What a humbling experience that must feel like, Jason, to have just the support of right now hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, and soon to be millions. So kudos to you, and for those in the audience that may aspire to be at the helm of a promising fintech company like yourself, what would you like to share to an up and coming entrepreneur or somebody that's aspires to be the CEO of any company? What is maybe a words of advice, wisdom, inspiration?
Well, yeah, I mean, all kinds of slogans come to my mind. First one is "Just do it." Obviously, that's a famous slogan. Just do it. I mean, I think one of the first things you can do is just set up a website or a social media channel. Say, "I'm doing this," and that kind of takes what's in your head and puts it into reality. Obviously, you don't just do it for the first idea that you've had. I mean, I think I used to have and still do maybe an idea a day. Out of all the ideas that I have in a week, one of them would be worth thinking about into the next. Out of all the ideas that were worth thinking about in a month, maybe 1 out of 12 were really probably quite good goers. And then they're the ones you test against your friends and against experts and advisory type people in your audience. But then just do it. Just start somehow. I think that's really important. You just start. And the second thing is you're just going to have loads of tenacity. That's the most amazing word, or is, delusional self-belief. I mean, that's really important. You're going to have such dark times ahead, but, difficult times. But then, you just got to get through them. You just got to keep going. As Winston Churchill said, never give in, just keep going. You've got to temper that a little bit with making sure that, you understand the pain, because that is an indicator that maybe things could be done a bit differently. One of my investors said to me, Jason, more than anything, more than anybody I know, you could bang your head against that wall and get through it just by keep on banging. But the problem is there's a door over there, so make sure sometimes you take the path of least resistance. So you've got to temper this delusional self-belief and drive and tenacity. You need that to get through the pain points. Sometimes the pain, we've had plenty. We've even had hostile takeover attacks and all kinds of stuff. You wouldn't believe it. But you got to get through those. But at the same time, temper it, work with your team. And at the end of the day, it's all about people, your clients, user-centric design approach. It's about your people that support your business, and lots of things like that. I mean, I could go on talking about startups and how you go on forever. We'd be here all day.
Man, I'd love to hear it, Jason. But I know that it's Taco Tuesday over here. I think it's prime time for you right now over across the pond. I believe it is close to 9. So we'll wrap this up short and sweet. I do have to ask this question on behalf of one of the audience members here. His name's Todd Hancock, a dear friend of mine. What's on the roadmap for a liquidity event for Glint? Throw it on the bone here, Jason.
Well, no, you can imagine, I've been doing this a long time. I'd like a little bit of liquidity. Some of the team would as well. It doesn't mean we're going to stop what we're doing by no means, but having a bit of liquidity, I think, is on everyone's mind. And what we're focused on at the moment is making sure that we have all the systems and processes in place to be able to do an IPO. So for me, I'd like to be able to think that by the end of next year, we're in a position to be able to go IPO should we wish to. And of course, that depends on lots of things. The timing of these things depends on a lot of things outside of our control. What's the world look like at that point? But yeah, of course, liquidity is important. We've got over 300 investors, probably, all wondering. They're all patient capital, but they're all at some point wanting some liquidity. So am I. So all I'm saying to him is that we're aligned.
I love to hear it.
But at the same time, I'm not doing this for money. I just know that money, reward comes from things that you do well. But that's the thing that separated me. There's been a number of people that have tried to do Glint and failed. And if you're driven by money alone, you're going to fail, because things always take longer than you think and are harder than you think. And you've really got to be interested in delivering an amazing product for the customer. So you've got to have that patience and that tenacity and that kind of perspective. Of course, you do something well and it meets a good use case and stuff. Yeah, you're going to do well financially.
I appreciate that, Jason, because ultimately, for me, as you're speaking about that, what resonates with me is, even in regards to this channel here, was able to monetize this channel within a month, a little over a month, right? And so thank you for all who are tuning in and supporting this channel. It means a whole lot to me. But, so immediately it's like, oh, great, this is monetized. We're going to start making some money, but it's at a snail's pace. So it is what it is. But ultimately, I'm just glad that we get to chop it up, and I'm proud that I get to support Glint in any capacity, even if it's just this type of live stream event. All right. Well,
listen,
Jason,
I just a big shout, big thank you to you, and I think everyone listening. Make sure you put comments in the video, because I think that's one of the things that helps the algorithm and stuff like that. Give Ray lots of love. We love you, Ray, and I do appreciate you inviting me on your channel. That's a real privilege.
Oh man, well, Jason, I'm just glad we were able to no technical difficulties were experienced, hopefully, and what is hopefully the next time I see you won't be at the XRP Las Vegas, but if it is, you're going to be going to that one as well, right?
Always, yeah, love it.
Awesome,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, Jason,
But
I'll
yeah,
bug
I
you.
mean,
Oh, excuse me.
yeah, I mean, you can find out more information about Glint at glintpay.com.
Perfect.
And of course, download the app. It's so easy to install and get up and registered. And I think about 80% of people get approved automatically. The other 20% have to submit some extra information. But yeah. Get on the personal gold standard.
If I can get approved, anybody can get approved. So, but and then Jason. So I put up on screen how people can find you on X. That's at Jason Cozens. What is it? At Glint Pay is Glint's as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Excellent.
And any ideas people have got, any feedback, we love all that kind of stuff. We really feed on it. So yeah, please give us feedback.
Wonderful. Well, Jason, I'm going to take you off the live stream. I'm going to put you on backstage. If you don't mind holding on for 2 minutes, we'll wrap this down, and then but I just want to close things out for the audience here and let them know of the next live stream coming up here. But I appreciate you coming up and joining me on today's live stream. And
thank you.
And tell Andrew I say hello as well. Great guy.
I will.
Thank you, sir. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in today. If you thought this content was impactful, please make sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons, as it really helps me lift this channel off the ground. If you have any questions for me, Jason, or anyone in my network, feel free to leave your questions in the comment section below. I'll be back this Thursday. That is September 11th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with another live stream featuring Zonix co-founder and chief business officer Sanjeev Barari, which is also a Ripple partner. Make sure you tune in for that interview, because we're going to be diving into the weeds on all things tokenizing real-world assets. So thank you all for stopping by and sharing your time with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and week. Oh, and then also, I noticed, just want to say thank you, a huge thank you to Crypto Eclipse. I saw that I've never gotten one of these. Looks like a $5 tip. So I'm going to have to turn this into some gold on Glint's platform. But I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and Taco Tuesday. Love you mucho. See ya.